The Galactic Council's emergency session convened in the Grand Amphitheater of Station Kepler 442, a structure so massive it had its own gravitational field. Representative James Mitchell stood among the delegates, feeling distinctly out of place among creatures that towered, slithered, and occasionally phased through solid matter. The emergency wasn't a war or a plague. It was a contest, and every species had been required to participate. The apex predator demonstration, announced High Arbiter Velshera, her crystalline body refracting light across the chamber, has been a tradition for 3,000 cycles. Each species presents their planet's ultimate hunter. The creature that proves most formidable will grant their species priority in colonization rights for the Andromeda sector. James watched as the first contestant was revealed. The Krillians presented their Void Stalker, a creature of pure shadow that existed partially in another dimension, capable of phasing through matter to reach its prey's vital organs. The demonstration involved the creature hunting a live target through a reinforced maze in under 30 seconds. The crowd murmured in appreciation. Next came the Thurian's contribution. The magma drake, a creature born in the heart of volcanic worlds, with skin that could withstand temperatures exceeding 10,000 degrees and breath that could melt through starship hulls. It demonstrated its prowess by reducing a combat mech to molten slag in minutes. Species after species presented nightmares given flesh. The Zenthari showed their psychic leviathan, capable of inducing madness with a single thought. The Korvax brought a swarm entity, millions of microscopic predators that could strip a fully grown Korvax to bones in seconds, then reassemble into a single consciousness. James felt the weight of every alien eye turning toward him. Earth's turn had arrived. And what? Velshera's voice carried a note of curiosity mixed with condescension. Does humanity present as their apex predator? James took a deep breath. We bring our most fearsome hunter, the creature that has brought the strongest among us to our knees, the entity that can shatter peace, destroy order, and reduce rational beings to desperate negotiations. The amphitheater fell silent. A transport container was wheeled into the demonstration area. Behold, James said, the human toddler. The container opened, and 3-year-old Tommy Rodriguez Todd dialed out, clutching a stuffed dinosaur in one hand and a half-eaten cookie in the other. He looked around at the assembled aliens with wide, curious eyes. The silence stretched for exactly 5 seconds. Then Tommy's lower lip began to quiver. He'd just realized his mother wasn't there. Mimimi! The wail that erupted from such a small creature defied physics. Several species with sensitive hearing organs immediately activated dampening fields. Tommy's face turned an impressive shade of crimson as he threw himself on the ground. Cookie flying, stuffed dinosaur forgotten. Want mommy new. The tantrum had begun. High Arbiter Velshera's crystalline structure actually vibrated with the sonic assault. Representative Mitchell, this is a juvenile of your species. This is not an apex predator. James stood his ground, though he had to raise his voice over Tommy's continued wailing. Permission to explain, High Arbiter? She gestured, clearly uncertain how to process what she was witnessing. Tommy had progressed from lying on the floor to a full-body tantrum, his small legs kicking with enough force to dent the reinforced flooring. His screams had taken on a rhythmic quality. No. The human toddler, James began, accessing his datapad, represents the apex predator of Earth through a unique evolutionary strategy. Unlike other apex predators that rely on physical strength or venom or camouflage, the human toddler has weaponized something far more powerful: the complete and utter psychological warfare against anything that cares for them. A Thurian delegate, his rocky features skeptical, rumbled, "Your apex predator requires care? Predators are independent hunters." "Are they?" James countered. "Or have you simply never encountered a predator that hunts through manipulation rather than force?" He projected a hologram. The human toddler operates on several levels simultaneously. First, the sonic attack. On cue, Tommy escalated to a shriek that caused several species to activate their translation devices' mute functions. Human vocalizations at this frequency and volume are specifically calibrated to cause maximum distress in adult humans. We evolved to find the sound literally unbearable. It activates every protective and stress response simultaneously. Tommy had discovered that the stuffed dinosaur could be thrown. He hurled it at the nearest alien delegate, a Corvax whose swarm form scattered in surprise before reforming. Second, the physical manifestation. James continued as Tommy went rigid, arching his back in a perfect bridge of fury. The toddler can make themselves nearly impossible to pick up, employing what we call going boneless or planking. They can also become suddenly immovable objects when they desire to remain in place. Despite their small size, approximately 1 meter in height and 15 kilograms, they become nearly impossible to physically manage. A Zenthari delegate, their psychic tendrils waving, spoke directly into everyone's minds. But surely a being of such limited capacity poses no real threat? Tommy? James called out. Would you like some ice cream? The tantrum stopped instantly. Tommy sat up, tears still on his red face, eyes narrowed. What flavor? Chocolate. Want strawberry. And the tantrum resumed with renewed vigor, now with the added element of Tommy trying to bite his own hand in frustration. James nodded. Third, the psychological warfare. Notice how the toddler instantly identified the potential reward, evaluated it, rejected it on arbitrary grounds, and used that rejection as fuel for continued assault. This is strategic thinking. The toddler is testing boundaries, analyzing responses, and determining the minimum effort required to achieve maximum results. This is absurd. The Krillian delegate hissed, their shadow form rippling. Our void stalker can phase through matter. Your toddler merely produces noise. Can your void stalker, James asked calmly, persist for hours without rest? Because Tommy here is just getting started. A human toddler in full tantrum can maintain this state for up to 6 hours. Some have been documented at 8. The human adult, meanwhile, experiences complete mental and physical exhaustion within 30 minutes of exposure. Tommy had found a new technique, the headbang. Not hard enough to injure himself. The toddler possessed an instinctive understanding of self-preservation, but hard enough to make horrifying sounds against the floor. Every nearby human in the observation deck visibly flinched. Fourth, and most importantly, James said, his voice taking on a more serious tone, the apex predator nature of the toddler lies in their primary ability. They can destroy the will to resist. Your void stalker kills the body. The human toddler kills something far more valuable, your patience, your sanity, your ability to think rationally. They don't need to kill you. They just need to make you do anything, absolutely anything, to make them stop. Velshera's light flickered uncertainly. You cannot seriously suggest that this small, clearly dependent creature represents more danger than the specimens we've seen? I'm not suggesting it, High Arbiter, James said quietly. I'm about to prove it. We propose a test, James announced. Each species that wishes may attempt to withstand or overcome our apex predator. The rules are simple. Maintain composure, accomplish a basic cognitive task, and not give in to the toddler's demands for a period of 1 standard hour. The Krillian delegate's laughter was like wind through a graveyard. I volunteer. Our species has faced the void stalker in our coming-of-age rituals. We have stared into the abyss between dimensions. I will not be bested by an infant. James nodded. Tommy, this is Kryvan. He's gonna play with you for a while. Tommy, who had momentarily paused his tantrum out of curiosity at the shadow creature, immediately recognized a new target. His eyes narrowed with the calculating look that every parent learns to fear. Hi, Tommy said, suddenly all smiles, with that mercurial emotional shift that toddlers wielded like a weapon. Kryvan phase-shifted closer, his form more solid than usual. Hello, small human. I am. Carry me, Tommy demanded, arms up. I do not think that is. Carry me. The air temperature seemed to drop as Tommy's voice took on a warning tone. Carry me now, now, now. Kryvan looked to James, who simply gestured, Your test has begun. The Krillian carefully formed solid appendages and lifted Tommy. For exactly 12 seconds there was peace. Then Tommy pointed across the amphitheater. Go there. I am attempting to complete the cognitive task that... There. Go there. Tommy had found that hitting the Krillian's solid form produced interesting shadows. He began drumming on Kryvan's head with increasing enthusiasm. 5 minutes in, Kryvan's form was flickering, a sign of stress in Krillians. Tommy had progressed from hitting to attempting to phase shift himself, and when that didn't work, had decided that screaming directly into what approximated the Krillian's ear analog was the solution. Make it stop, Kryvan whispered. What does it want? Ask him, James suggested. Small human, what do you want? Tommy stopped mid-scream, considering. Cookie. A cookie. Yes. Kryvan materialized one from the refreshment area, relief evident in his stabilizing form. Here is your cookie. Tommy looked at it, looked at Kryvan, and with the cold calculation of a general burning bridges behind his army, deliberately dropped the cookie on the floor. That cookie is yucky. Want different cookie. Kryvan got a different cookie. Tommy rejected it. Then another. By the fourth cookie, the Krillian was no longer attempting the cognitive task. He was fully focused on the cookie crisis. When Tommy finally accepted a cookie, Kryvan's relief lasted exactly as long as it took Tommy to take one bite and declare, "Don't want it anymore. Want juice." At the 20-minute mark, Kryvan phased fully into shadow form and retreated to the observation area, his form rippling with what could only be described as trauma. It's not possible. The creature has no logical framework. Every demand is arbitrary. Every satisfaction is temporary. It's psychological torture. The Thurian delegate stepped forward, confident. I am Torgon, combat master of my people. I have trained in the magma forges. I have wrestled magma drakes. I will not yield to this tiny creature. Tommy was eating his rejected cookie, having decided it was acceptable again. He looked up at the massive rock-like being. Big, he observed. Then, with perfect timing, need potty. What is potty? Torgon asked. Every human in the observation deck winced. James cleared his throat. It means he needs to use the waste elimination facilities. It's urgent. Then someone take him. It's part of your test, James said. You're responsible for him for the hour. What followed would later be described in Thurian military academies as the bathroom incident. Tommy, it turned out, did not actually need the potty urgently. But he did need to flush the toilet 17 times to see it work, unroll all the cleaning paper, attempt to climb into the sink, ask why the Thurian didn't need to use the potty, and then demand an explanation of Thurian waste processing. And finally, when Torgon thought the ordeal was over, announced that now he needed to go, but wanted a different bathroom because this one was scary. Torgon emerged 35 minutes later, his rock-like skin actually showing cracks from stress. The Toddler is a weapon that never depletes, never shows mercy, and cannot be reasoned with. I submit. The Zenthari delegate's psychic voice was smug. Physical beings, all of you. I will simply create a psychic connection and soothe the child's mind. The Zenthari approached Tommy, their psychic tendrils extending, prepared to bathe the Toddler in calming mental energy. Tommy felt the psychic touch and went absolutely still. Then his eyes rolled back, and he released a psychic tantrum, pure, unfiltered toddler ID directly into the Zenthari's consciousness. Every want, every need, every frustration, every bit of the chaotic, contradictory, intensely emotional experience of being 3 years old and having feelings too big for his body and language too limited for his thoughts came pouring out in a tidal wave. The Zenthari's scream echoed both audibly and psychically through the station. They retreated, tendrils writhing. There's no structure, no logic, just want, endless, contradictory want, and feelings. So many feelings. The amphitheater had gone quiet except for Tommy, who was now singing a song that consisted entirely of the word, baby, repeated at random intervals and volumes. James looked around at the assembled species. Do you understand now? The human toddler is an apex predator not because they kill, but because they conquer. They don't need venom or claws. They have something far more effective. They have evolved to overcome the adult of their own species, which is itself an apex predator of Earth. We call it parenting. Every human adult you meet has survived years of this. We have been forged in the fires of tantrums, molded by the chaos of a toddler's logic, and emerged with the ability to negotiate with terrorists, maintain composure under psychological assault, and function on levels of sleep deprivation that would kill other species. High Arbiter Velshera's crystalline form pulsed with what might have been frustration. This is ridiculous. The child is simply undisciplined, poorly trained. Any adult with proper authority could. Then you try High Arbiter, James interrupted, with perhaps more satisfaction than was diplomatic. 1 hour. Surely the leader of the Galactic Council can manage one human toddler. The challenge was implicit, public, and impossible for Velshera to decline without losing face before every species present. Her light flickered through several colors before settling on determined violet. Very well. I accept. Tommy had been playing with his stuffed dinosaur, making it eat his shoelaces, but he looked up as the massive crystalline being approached. To her credit, Velshera had done her research. She projected a hologram of bright, moving colors. Species across the galaxy used similar techniques to distract their young. Tommy watched it for approximately 4 seconds. Boring. Perhaps you would like to. Boring. Boring. Stupid. I hate it. Tommy threw his dinosaur at the hologram. Then he wanted the dinosaur back. Then he didn't want it. Then he wanted it, but only if the High Arbiter got it. Then he wanted her to throw it so he could catch it. Then he missed catching it and blamed her. Then he didn't want to play anymore and wanted a snack. Velshera produced a nutritional wafer approved for human juvenile consumption. Tommy took one look at it. Yucky. It is perfectly calibrated for your nutritional needs. Yucky. It's yucky. It looks yucky. Tommy was working himself up again, that familiar redness creeping into his face. But you have not even tasted. It's yucky. Each word was punctuated with a stomp. Want chicken nuggets. What are chicken nuggets? This was, in retrospect, the critical mistake. Because Tommy's explanation of what chicken nuggets were, why they were better than anything else, how they had to be the right shape, and what constituted the right shape, consumed 15 minutes of increasingly frantic questioning from Velshera, who was trying desperately to understand the deep cosmological significance that this food item clearly held in the toddler's worldview. When James finally provided actual chicken nuggets, he'd planned ahead. Tommy looked at them and said, "Not hungry now." The High Arbiter's light flickered rapidly through her entire color spectrum, the crystalline equivalent of a nervous breakdown. But you said you demanded. Not hungry. Tommy pushed the plate away. Want to go home? Then we will end the test. No, don't want to go home. Tommy's logic was a pretzel. Want to stay but go home. Want mommy but not leave. Want? He paused, searching for something sufficiently impossible. Want to be mommy? You cannot be your mother. That's not. Why not? And there it was, the question that had defeated philosophers. Why not? Tommy's face was a mask of genuine distress. In his mind, this was a reasonable request, and the universe's failure to accommodate it was a betrayal of the highest order. Velshera tried logic. Tommy cried. She tried distraction. Tommy threw things. She tried offering rewards. Tommy rejected them, then demanded them back, then rejected them again. She tried ignoring the behavior. Tommy escalated, demonstrating a preternatural ability to know exactly when he was being ignored and exactly how to make that impossible. 45 minutes in, the High Arbiter of the Galactic Council, a being who had negotiated peace treaties between species that communicated through incompatible senses, who had resolved conflicts spanning light years, who had maintained order across thousands of worlds, was on her knees or the crystalline equivalent, desperately offering Tommy everything she could think of if he would just, please stop crying. I will give you candy. I will find your mother. I will get different chicken nuggets. I will. Tommy stopped crying mid-sob. He'd won, and some instinct as old as humanity itself told him so. Want juice and crackers and to watch cartoons and sit with you and have you read a story and, yes, all of it. Anything. Tommy smiled, suddenly angelic. and climbed into what approximated her lap. Okay. The cognitive task Velshera was supposed to complete remained on her datapad, untouched. She hadn't even looked at it in half an hour. When the hour ended, Tommy was peacefully eating crackers and watching a holographic display of something called Paw Patrol, while Velshera sat completely still, her light dim and pulsing weakly. She looked like she'd survived a war. "I submit," she whispered. "I submit completely. The toddler is the apex predator. Not because of physical prowess, but because of something far more terrifying. The complete inability to be defeated through any conventional means. You cannot kill it, that's morally abhorrent. You cannot ignore it, it will escalate. You cannot reason with it. It operates on a logic system that is internally consistent but externally incomprehensible. You cannot outlast it, it has more endurance than you do. The only way to survive is to surrender." James nodded slowly. "Now imagine raising one from birth to 18 years old. Every single human adult has done this or helped do it. We are all survivors of the apex predator. And that High Arbiter is why humanity might be more formidable than you initially assumed." The amphitheater was silent except for the sound of Tommy crunching crackers and humming tunelessly to himself, completely unaware that he'd just unearthed the colonization rights to an entire sector of space. The aftermath of Tommy's demonstration rippled through the Galactic Council in ways no one had anticipated. Within hours, xenoanthropologists from 17 species had requested permission to study human child-rearing practices. Within days, military academies were adding courses on psychological endurance to their curricula. Within weeks, the footage of High Arbiter Velshera being reduced to pleading negotiations with a 3-year-old had become the most-watched video in galactic history. James stood in the observation deck of Station Kepler 442, watching the delegates depart. Tommy was safely back with his mother on Earth, probably terrorizing her with requests for increasingly specific sandwich configurations. The colonization rights had been awarded to humanity, but more than that, something had shifted in how the galaxy viewed Earth. Commander Sarah Rodriguez, no relation to Tommy, though the coincidence had amused everyone, joined him at the viewport. The Thurians have requested an exchange program. They want to send their military candidates to human daycare centers. For training. James couldn't help but laugh. Are we going to tell them that daycare workers are already among the most highly trained psychological warfare specialists in human society? Eventually, let them figure it out. She pulled up a datapad. The Krillians are offering technology sharing in exchange for instruction on what they call toddler-level negotiation tactics. Apparently, they've identified 17 war scenarios where a diplomatic approach modeled on handling a tantrum would have been more effective than military action. They're not wrong, James mused. How many international incidents have been resolved because some negotiator learned patience from dealing with a 3-year-old who refused to wear pants? More than we'll ever admit. Sarah's expression grew more serious. The Council wants to establish formal relations now. Real partnership, not just the junior member status we've had. Velshera specifically requested you as the official ambassador. Did she say why? She said, and I'm quoting here, "Any species that can survive daily exposure to their own apex predator has earned the right to stand as equals. We have much to learn from human endurance." James looked out at the stars, thinking about Earth and all its contradictions. Humanity had reached for the cosmos with rockets and dreams, with science and hope. They'd expected to prove themselves through technology or strategy or diplomacy. Instead, their greatest ambassador had been a 3-year-old with a dinosaur toy and an unbreakable will. "You know what the really terrifying part is?" Sarah said quietly. "We don't just survive the toddler years. We love them. Every parent, despite the tantrums and the chaos and the sleep deprivation, would give anything for their child. The toddler's apex predator strategy isn't just about breaking us down. It's about being so fundamentally important to us that we willingly sacrifice everything for them. That's not just survival. That's something else entirely." James nodded. "It's called family. And maybe that's the real reason we're ready for the stars. Any species can build a ship or fire a weapon. But a species that can love something that drives them absolutely insane? That can negotiate with a toddler and still come back the next day with patience and affection? That kind of resilience, that kind of dedication, that's what makes for good neighbors in a crowded galaxy. A message chimed on his datapad. It was from Tommy's mother. Tommy wants to know when he can go back to space. He says he wants to show the Rockman how to do a cartwheel. Please advise. Send help. He's been practicing on the furniture. James showed Sarah the message, and they both laughed. The tired, knowing laugh of anyone who'd ever dealt with a toddler's boundless energy and inexplicable goals. Should we warn Torgon? Sarah asked. Absolutely not. Let him think he's safe for a little while longer. Across the galaxy, in military installations and research centers, on council chambers and diplomatic vessels, the other species were learning what humanity had known for millennia. The most dangerous predator isn't the one with the biggest teeth or the deadliest venom. It's the one that can make you negotiate with yourself about why you can't have ice cream for breakfast, even though technically it has milk and eggs and fruit, and isn't that basically breakfast food anyway? On Earth, Tommy Rodriguez finished his cartwheel, crashed into a couch, laughed, and immediately started planning his next big adventure. In his 3-year-old mind, he'd made some new friends who were fun to play with, even if they didn't always understand the rules of his games. He didn't know he was an apex predator. He was just being himself. And that, perhaps, was the most terrifying thing of all. 6 months later, the Galactic Council's official records noted that humanity's integration into the larger community proceeded, surprisingly smoothly, given initial assessments. What the records didn't include was that smoothly was relative. When the Zenthari delegation arrived on Earth for diplomatic talks, they specifically requested that all human children under the age of 5 be kept at least a kilometer away from the negotiations. The request was denied. It turned out the talks were being held in a building next to an elementary school. The Zenthari learned to work with earplugs. The Thurian Military Academy's exchange program became legendary. Candidates who survived 3 months in human daycare facilities returned home with what veterans called the 1,000-yard stare and an unshakable calm in combat situations. As one graduate put it, after you've successfully convinced 20 small humans that yes, they really do need to wash their hands before snack time, disarming a fusion bomb feels relaxing. And High Arbiter Velshera, in a move that surprised the entire galaxy, requested a human child-rearing manual for her archives. When asked why, she simply said, "Know your apex predators. Respect your apex predators. And if you're very lucky, learn from them." Tommy Rodriguez, now 3.5, had moved on to a new phase, asking why in response to every statement. His mother had aged approximately 7 years in 6 months. Humanity's place in the galaxy was secure. Not because they were the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced, but because they had survived their toddlers. And that, as the galaxy now understood, made them apex survivors of apex predators. The human race had been battle-tested by their own children and found resilient beyond measure. The stars, it turned out, had nothing on a determined 3-year-old who really wanted cookies for dinner.